All right, we'll get started. And if you have friends, colleagues joining us, then you can fill them in. So welcome. We are just so happy that you chose to take a pause and be with us, especially when you sit on a computer probably most of your day. So thank you. We're really grateful. I have over 20 years in education, and here's what I've learned about educators. The hearts that you have are just massive. And I also know that you didn't get into this profession for the paycheck. I know that it's exhausting physically and emotionally, and it often feels like there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel, especially right now during the pandemic. So I just want to say thank you for all that you're doing. And I want to remind you that this is the most impactful profession of all. So we together have the power to impact and influence the trajectory of the lives of our students and our next generation. So we're so grateful for the dedication that you have to your students right now. I don't even know how to say how thankful we are. Thank you for choosing to spend time with us. And then we appreciate any of the questions that you sent ahead of time. We're going to try and weave them into our presentation, and then we're going to save about 15 minutes at the end, and longer if you want to stay, for Q&A, addressing things that came up often in the questions. So if you have additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. If they're personal, you can private message Alicia, who's listed as our host. And she will make sure that you get an answer. So our goal today is to create a space for you to pause, to fill up a little bit, and to walk away with some ideas and tools that you can share with your colleagues and your students. We really want you to feel seen, we want you to feel heard, and we want you to feel valued. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Pam Ryan. I'm a mom of 5 grown children. I am a lifelong educator, a certified emotional intelligence coach, as well as one of Brene Brown's global facilitators of Dare to Lead and Daring Classrooms. Calm is my superpower. So I do want to take a minute to share with you how this amazing group of women on the panel came to be. When COVID-19 came upon us, all of my work was put to a halt. I was no longer going into schools. I was no longer going into businesses. And Brene kept nudging us to serve the work. And I'm like, ugh, I don't even know what that means. And so I began to ask myself, like, what would I need if I was you right now teaching? What would I need to support students virtually? And along the way, I reached out to these amazing women who I've worked with at some point in my career before. So I feel like the silver lining in all this is that we're all together again, and we're teaming together. So I'd like to just pause and take a minute to let them introduce themselves to you. Allie, I think we'll start with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so fun to see familiar faces. I see lots of educators I've worked with in the past, and it's really good to have you here. My name is Allie Storty. I want to just echo what Pam said. Teachers are such valuable, incredible people. And having been a teacher, having been an administrator, having been a coach, I've lived that and known that. And as I watch my kindergartner and first grader go through their distance learning right now, I appreciate you even more. The way that you're trying to connect with my kids, the loving approach and the care that their teachers are providing for them is just invaluable. And I'm here because I want to give back to you in the same way that you're giving to our own kids. So thank you for the opportunity. You are all superheroes in my book, and I'm coming to you with the superpower of being highly flexible.
Piper, you're on mute.
Knack for this. My name is Piper Nichols, mom of 4 grown children. That's partly why I was on mute. 3 dogs, and I'm a lifelong educator. I spent 17 years in Rochester, Minnesota public schools in a variety of different roles. I have had the honor the past 5 years working with teachers across the country, as well as building and leadership teams. My superpower is connecting. And I know this is done through the power of vulnerability and creating spaces for others to be as vulnerable as well. I want to echo what Pam and Allie are saying and thanking you for being brave today by just showing up and continuing to connect with other educators from around the country. We see you. More importantly, the nation is starting to see you being creative when dropping materials off at students' homes, creating platforms for students to connect with you and with one another, and building even tighter connections with those precious children you call your students. Thank you for giving yourself permission to pause while pressing in today in these exciting yet very extremely challenging times. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Slade, and I've been a teacher, a coach, a principal, and I founded a charter school in Chicago. I saw someone that's a charter school, and I saw some people from Chicago. So I'm excited to have you here today. My superpower is multitasking. I think many of you can probably align with the kinds of things that I'm dealing with as well, with a 2nd and 4th grader at home, going back to my roots and teaching all day in between conference calls and Zoom meetings and things like that. And I'm really excited today to have you experience some activities that hopefully will help us remember that we are actually not going back to school, but we are going forward to school. Really dreaming and planning and visioning what a new normal can be for us.
Thanks, Allison. So as I talked and listened to teachers in the last couple of months all around the nation on Zoom calls, there was something that became very clear. And that is that we don't know how to prioritize ourselves over others. We run out of time to take care of us. We haul around overwhelm, loneliness, excessive anxiety, and we try to act like everything's okay. Well, maybe you don't, I do. And this is super hard. So I just want to name that this is hard. And yet, I know that deep down, we're brave enough to do hard things. One of the, Alicia, could you put the slide up that has one of the things that I learned from Brene Brown is that fear is not something that we run away from. We're fearful all the time. And I love, this is one of our self-care cards for teachers, and this quote really resonates with me. One has to understand that braveness is not the absence of fear, but rather the strength to keep on going forward despite the fear. And I think in this uncertain time, we can run pretty high with that feeling of fear. And I just want to pause and have you take a second to remind yourself of how brave you can be. And just on a piece of paper near you, just brainstorm all of the things that you've done in the past month, or some of them that feel hard, that feel scary. Some of us, I think, feel like we're doing something hard and scary every hour of the day. So I just want you to pause as a way to just remind yourself of your braveness, even when you're fearful and things are hard. And then when we're done, you're gonna put on your superhero cape and you're gonna run around your house. So today, as we facilitate a conversation around brave teaching during COVID-19, we are gonna mix in several activities from both the teacher self-care solutions that we've created that honor you and what you're going through, as well as the activities from the student toolbox. And realizing how exhausted you probably are from facilitating virtually with your class, we'd really like to invite you to take off your facilitation hat right now and just be along for the ride and the engagement and the connection with others. Our goal is to create a space for you in the next little more than an hour where the weight that you're carrying starts to feel a little lighter and you can connect with others through real conversation. So I am going to transition over to a little bit of research before we dig in. So I'm not going to cite research because I think it's really clear right now. It's all over. We, our families, our students are experiencing collective trauma. We're experiencing collective grief, collective anxiety, and our new normal has us feeling really disconnected. And one thing that I'm sure you know from being with your kids is that when our emotions are out of balance and unattended to, things like attention span, creativity, decision-making, motivation, and even our physical health suffer. So now more than ever, our students need us to be brave enough to talk about how we're feeling, what we're grieving. They're looking to us for how to handle this new normal. They're desperate for a space to process and connect with their heart when they can't connect with their hands. And so we really need to be brave enough to help each other, to ask each other how they're doing, how they're really doing, to be empathetic, and to sit in uncomfortable with our friends and with our students. So let's start today. We're going to share a few activities that are designed for you, but also to use with your students. They're in support of some of the big issues that COVID-19 is leaving us with. So here's Allie to talk about the first of those issues, our need for connection.
Thank you, Pam. As Pam talked about the value of connection, and you more than anyone as teachers are wired for connection. Your students need it, you need it, we need it as human beings. And at a time like this during COVID, we feel so disconnected. More than ever, we have the need for connection. And we know that when we're feeling disconnected, it can lead to discouragement, disengagement, depression, and hopelessness. So I want you to think a little bit about how can you carve out time, maybe 10 minutes, to prioritize relationships and well-being over assignments and behavioral expectations. Maybe how have you done that? I know it's hard, and we can all do hard things. Take time to notice effort over performance. Let's name and normalize how hard it can be to put our effort there right now. Be real, tell your story. I think about that with my own kids and how important it is for me to be authentic and real and to share stories with them to help navigate this experience they're having. Create a relational ritual with your students. Check in with distance learning assignments. For example, students and educators can share one tough moment and one hopeful moment of the day. Or educators and students can share one new lesson that they've learned about themselves or about each other during the day. And continue to be cognizant of the difficult times that you know families may be experiencing through this COVID-19. I want to share a little activity with you that we're going to walk through together as a team. But before I do that, I want to tell a story about my son Finnegan. And this is where this activity or this experience really was born. So Finnegan is 7, and he's an athlete, a very active kid, loves to go outside, loves to ride his bike. So one morning I was going on a social distance walk with a friend of mine, and I asked him if he wanted to join me on his bike. And right away, excitedly, he said, "Of course I do." He just got a new mountain bike and couldn't wait to ride it. A couple minutes later, I could just tell his body language had changed, a little bit more slumped over. He had tears in his eyes and started asking me some questions. "Mom, are we going to be riding on the sidewalk? Mom, are there going to be lots of people around? Mom, are you going to be within 6 feet of your own friend?" Because my husband is 6'2", and so he always measures how tall his dad is compared to how far away I need to be from somebody in social distancing. He started to worry about what it would be like for him to ride his bike, and it started to take the joy away from him. And it dawned on me that this is near and dear to his 7-year-old heart every single day. And so Pam and I were talking about this one day, and she came up with this amazing idea about grief in a 6-foot bubble. So I want to share this activity with you and have us walk through this together to experience maybe what this could be like for your own students, or how you can engage your own children in this activity.
Or yourself.
Yeah, yourself. And actually, I did this with my kindergartner and first grader, and then my neighbor who's a senior in high school. And one of the most amazing things about these solutions and experiences that we have, they really span across a K-12 experience and add so much value and meet students where they're at and are flexible based on what the students need and what you need as a teacher. So I'll invite you just to grab a piece of paper and a pen. And in the middle of that paper, you can either write your name or draw a quick picture of yourself, and then draw a circle around it, a circle big enough to be able to write some things inside the circle and space to leave to write some things outside of the circle. I always tell my students to give me their best smile when they're ready. So think for a moment, and this will go on the outside of the circle, of things that you miss doing, you miss seeing, you're missing out on as a result of the coronavirus or COVID-19. And just take a minute to write those things down. Or in the case of young kids, we could ask them to draw a picture of what they're missing, or what they're missing, what they're wishing they could see. So I'll just give you about 30 seconds. And as I watched my own kids do this, this was so real for them. The things they put on the outside of the circle were missing friends, missing sports, missing their teachers, missing the classroom, missing the senior in high school that I was talking to, missing graduation, missing prom, missing her friends, wondering if college was going to start the way it typically has, or if it would be online. And now I challenge you to shift your thinking to the inner circle and think about things that you are grateful for as a result of COVID-19. What are things, positive experiences that have emerged as a result? For example, my children said more family time, more bike rides when no one's around, more family games. So take about 30 seconds to write those things down. And in just a minute, we are going to take an opportunity to join a breakout room and reflect together about this experience. So Alicia, would you mind putting up the next slide? So hold this experience close to you. And like I mentioned, you're going to be going into a breakout room for a couple of minutes with a small group. So I invite you to take a picture of this slide, because this won't be posted as you're in your breakout room. You're going to do quick introductions of who you are. You're going to share something with your group that you are grateful for that wouldn't be possible without COVID-19. And you're going to share something that you're already doing that is in service of creating a connection. So take that quick picture and we'll send you to your breakout room.
Great, and I just need a couple minutes to get everyone into a room.
And as Alicia is doing that, it makes me think of what I'm really missing right now. And I sure am missing a Starbucks visit. It's been 7 weeks since I've been to Starbucks, and it's one of those little things, but it was just like the highlight of my day.
I could go for a Starbucks right now.
Can't wait.
Just wait a couple more minutes here.
as you're entering your breakout rooms. Be prepared to share.
Amy, you matter. We'll get you there.
I'm so sorry, Amy. Where did she go?
Amy, you and I can start talking until she gets you to a room.
Amy, are you there?
Oh, she's not. Maybe she's gone. There she goes.
I show everyone a sound, so they must not just have
You show everyone what?
a sound. You go bot. Yeah, are you there? Hi, Susan. Welcome. We just sent everyone to breakout rooms, so I want to welcome you and acknowledge that you probably don't know what's going on right now. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
I'm sorry I'm late. I had a small group of children who needed
Oh yeah, no worries at all.
their mom.
People in breakout rooms over at exercise, so we'll probably just have you sit out on this one. And actually, I'll put you in a room, and then you're welcome to join the discussion. I'm going to put you in the room with Allie, who is the facilitator of this exercise, and then hopefully you'll be a part of the discussion, and we'll be in good shape. But other than that, we'll see you when you come back.
Thanks. Welcome, Susan. Who's the, oh, that's Phil. That P. Gerbata is Allie's friend. No one can hear me, right?
Well, he could, in theory. He got assigned to breakout room 5, but he didn't join it, so I'm assuming he's not here.
You might have logged in twice because something came through as a registration right at the end.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
I could boot him.
So like literally at 3:32, there was a registration from him.
Should I put him back in the waiting room so he can't hear us?
Maybe.
I don't know where these noises keep coming from. All right, I'm gonna remove him. Oh wait, maybe I won't. I'm gonna. Do you want to call me? Do you have something that you want to say?
No, I was, I guess just confirming that once you go over that slide, you'll transition then to the questions. I wrote up something about um,
Okay, sorry about that. So apparently I can't work on breakout rooms when I have a screen share up, which was part of the delay. So
Oh,
for the next one, I'll start to assign breakout rooms before I do a screen share so that when it's time, I'll just put them in there.
they're going to the same one though next time, right?
Yeah, so moving forward, it will be a piece of cake, but
Okay.
I'm going to do what, like a 3-minute warning?
Where are we on time?
We are good.
Allie's supposed to be done at 4:05, right?
Yeah.
I would do a 2-minute warning. I don't think they need 3 more minutes. We've been going for a while, right?
Not that long.
Are there 3 in a room?
No, there's actually 5 in a room.
Oh, okay. I can't find the name of Debbie Bell when I want to send her a private message. She doesn't show up in the chat thing.
She's just under Debbie with an E for some reason, unless there's more than one Debbie.
I don't think so. Okay. I'll look again when they come back because no one shows up now. Can you get a sense of, are people doing?
Engaged and they're writing things down, which I always take to be a good sign.
Okay. I'm actually glad that.
What a schedule, because we started at like 1:35.
Yeah.
And we didn't account for that when we were doing our timing. So we're actually 5 minutes ahead of schedule right now.
Okay. And I also just realized that because we're recording this part's being recorded, correct?
Mm-hmm. But I can cut that out. That's okay.
Okay.
You know that.
Yeah, I think you can give them a warning if you haven't.
I gave them a 2-minute warning before. So
Okay.
if I close the rooms now, it will give them 60 seconds left. Is that good?
Yeah. How many do we have total that actually logged in?
I think 28. It's going to be your face when we come back in about 38 seconds.
Okay.
But we don't need
Great.
those questions back up again. She's not going to refer back to them, right?
Nope.
Are we all back, Alicia?
Yep, we're all on our way back. People might be hanging out in the room until the last possible second because they have important things to say.
Yeah, they're not all back yet.
I'll just wait.
Breakout room 2 and 3, actually, and 4 and 5 must have a robust discussion going on. They're still chatting about.
Here they are.
Welcome back, everyone. We had some great conversation in our breakout room, and I just am so honored to be part of that discussion with these amazing educators. So I appreciate that. How did that experience make you feel? Would anybody be willing to share with the whole group? We'll just ask a couple people to share.
It's just good to be connected and know even across the country, we're all kind of going through the same things. And our class is not doing any, my school is not doing any online learning, face-to-face, nothing Zooming or anything with our students. So I do miss that. I miss my staff a lot, because that's what keeps me coming back. The needs of our kids, but especially good staff. And so that's kind of nice to be able to talk to folks this way too, have that connection.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I can share.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, go ahead.
I miss the actual being with the children. I've said that my superpower was making relationships and connecting with children, and I feel like somebody brought COVID and that became my kryptonite for this. So I think that's probably where my superpower and my thing that I'm not happy about with COVID combined. because it's tough. I certainly still get to see some of them on Zoom. We have class Zooms every week. I call them individually now and again, not all the time, but it's a lot. And I mean, the other side of it, from an administrative standpoint, I'm spending hours and hours and hours putting together lessons, recording things and grading things and checking things off and giving lessons and feedback. And I mean, it's a huge amount of things, which in the classroom itself, you sit with a child for 5 minutes, you've sorted it out. So that's a major difference.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity to share and reflect with us today. We really want this to be a space dedicated to your reflection and to our collaboration. So we greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to pass the baton to Allison Slade.
Great. Thanks, Allie. You know, in addition to being wired for connection, as sort of the grief in a bubble activity alluded to, our sense of psychological and emotional safety has been significantly disrupted with COVID. We probably never experienced something like this in the past, where schools that are known for predictability and consistency and a regular schedule and being a safe place for every person are closed to the world. And, you know, our children are watching on the news, you know, large amounts of people in hospitals, people concerned about not having enough hospital beds, or frankly, enough toilet paper. For many families, you know, these worries are about income or food insecurity, inability to pay bills. But they can also be about emotional security, being concerned about, as you heard from Allie's story before, going outside or the things that could happen to us because of this virus. And all of this matters when it comes to learning. Many of you have probably heard about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and although this is a very non-typical ACE, it is an ACE for everybody. And it affects and impacts learning, a student's ability to learn, and students' ability to retain new information. We have the opportunity to redefine and reimagine sort of how students learn and that environment that we are creating for students, either virtually or in person when we do go back to school. So one of the things to sort of address this psychological and emotional safety, obviously, is creating that predictability in whatever your environment was. So I know Daniel shared, you know, that he's Zooming once a week, or he's calling people. Is there something that students can count on occurring, even if you're not in person, as someone shared before? Maybe it's a newsletter or a note that's sent to everyone. Or something like that, because that can really help students to manage stress easier. It's also important that you realize that students don't really necessarily understand the change in your own routine. And so I'm a very routine person that has been very disrupted, right? Because I have kids coming in, my daughters, every moment to ask a question, and that, you know, keeping a routine has been challenging. So being vulnerable and sharing that with your students is also another strategy to help increase their emotional safety. And then lastly, we can't assume that experiences with remote learning or the understanding of the global pandemic is universal for everyone. So really making sure that we're encouraging our students to lead the way in sharing how they feel about the situation, anything that they want to share with us in any way possible, whether that's via Zoom or via a phone call, or even just filling in the blank, I wish my teacher knew. And making sure that we're continuing to get that information so that we're normalizing the situation for students. And when we share these experiences with students and adults, I was private chatting with someone on here who is in higher education and working with educators. So these things perfectly transfer to those individuals as well. We want to make sure that we are lowering the level of anxiety and stress and uncertainty in our minds and bodies. I have personally found it really important to refocus on the things that I can control and influence versus those things that I say all day, what if, to those things that I can't control. So Alicia, maybe you can put up the slide for our next activity, which is around exactly that prospect, which is controlling what we can. So there's lots of ways to do this. What we suggest is that you sort of make a T-chart right underneath your circle, your bubble, or on the other side of your paper. Write a T-chart. And on the left-hand side of the page, write all the things of worry. Things that I write down are, will Instacart be able to find my groceries? How many people will be at the park when we take our walk today? Will my kids get enough work to sustain them through my conference calls that I'm gonna do tomorrow? Will there be camp? And if not, what am I gonna do with my children all summer? So write down all of those what ifs on the left-hand side. We'll take a moment to do that. And when you're done, which unfortunately during this time, sometimes we're never done with that side, you're gonna, on the right-hand side, think about those things that you can control, right? You can't control how many people are outside at the park, but you can control that you're gonna work with your kids on crossing the street when you see someone else on the same sidewalk as you are, right? You can control redesigning your lessons so that you are connecting with each kid individually. You can control that you're actually going to laugh instead of worry about those things. And before we go into the breakout rooms, I want you to think about how it helped you to write those things down. For me, the what ifs can just permeate throughout my sort of existence, right? I can sort of think and think and think, especially at night, right before I go to bed. So I like to keep the little T-chart or the little circle by my bed. So I just get it out, I write it all out, and I can be like, okay, now I don't have to think about those things. But think about how writing that down made you feel, and how it might make your students and or teachers feel. That these are all the things that I'm worrying about, but I can't control them. And instead, I'm gonna focus my energy and my attention on these things that I can control. So Alicia, before we go to the breakout rooms, maybe you can put up the questions for everyone. Again, remember the questions are not visible in your breakout room, so go ahead and take a picture. You're gonna be with the same people again, and so you won't have to go through introductions. You know them already. But things I want you to think about and share are, how did processing that visually help you? And where can you or should you put your energy and what you discovered? And sort of how might this be helpful either in your classroom or to some of the participants who were talking before in a team meeting, or if you're a principal in a leadership team meeting, how could that be helpful to integrate either into your virtual classroom or into a virtual meeting, team meeting or staff meeting? And as you're thinking about that, Alicia will send us to our breakout rooms.
Amy, are you doing okay? You have to manually join the room. Amy. There she is. Okay, we're doing good. She was 2 minutes ahead of schedule.
Sweet. Um,
I think if we do about 7 minutes in here, we'll probably be good. Pull them back, and then I think we're in good shape for timing at the end.
okay.
Great. I'm gonna grab a refreshment real quick.
So Gina is Davis's second grade teacher.
No. Oh my God, you start crying?
I want to give like a special shout out, but that's not very nice.
It's totally nice. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I'll do it anyways.
She was something for him.
So awesome.
No, I'll wait till we're done. Or I'll wait till the next one to go take a little break.
All right, I'm gonna give him a 2-minute warning. Oh, shit. Okay. I'm gonna bring it back. I always think it's a good sign when people don't jump right out of the breakout room.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Oh, we have Dallas here. We have quite a, this will save, right, the chat?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Okay.
We all back?
I think so. Close.
Okay. I think we have just about a minute or two if anyone wants to share anything that came up in their group or something that they thought about when really trying to think about things that you can control and influence as opposed to sort of perseverating on things that, you know, you can't control.
This reminds me of, I'll be a little vulnerable here. I go to Al-Anon, which is for adult children of alcoholics. My father was an alcoholic. That's beside the point. But it reminds me of a technique we use in Al-Anon where we say one day at a time. You know what I mean? And this reminds me of how we're always being reminded to focus on what, because a lot of times we blow things out of proportion and we become like worry warts. And this forces you to take a step back and simplify things so that they don't seem so massive. And that's what creates the stress, the massiveness of the what ifs, right? Because in our imaginations, we spiral those out of control. And so this allows you to bring it back into perspective. So I really appreciated that a lot.
Great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So if I could say something real quick, I found as I was writing the what ifs and can't control, it was allowing me to kind of release them and just acknowledging that I don't have control and writing it down. I focus most of my time on what I can control. I found that I just ditch what I can't control and just let it go. But writing it down is it's magical. It's always magical when we write.
Thanks, Jim.
I think about what that can do for our kids too, as you talked about that, Jim, and that experience or that emotion you felt, how this can have that same impact on them.
Great. Well, I am going to lob it over to Piper for our last activity. And then we'll have some time for questions and some more explanation of what Better Cubed has to offer.
And I just want to tag on what Jim just shared about the release. I know that when I wrote the things that I'm out of control and things that I have in control, that I also experienced that sense of release. And so I really love this activity, and I think about how you could scaffold it, and we've got it scaffolded the way it's written, but you could have kids draw pictures, or even adults. Sometimes it's okay to do a little art with it. High school students might have a different approach with it as well. writing it or putting it in poetry or something. So I really felt that same release that you named, Jim. So thanks for sharing and naming that. So the next thing we want to be thinking about is our activities are to be around goal setting, but I'm thinking about hope. And so hope is the expectation that everything will work out and the feeling that things will be all right. Right now, many of us, I know for me, may be feeling discouraged, hopeless, sad, angry. Adults and students alike may be feeling a great sense of loss over activities that they will not be able to take place. Students may be particularly disappointed in missing out on sports, competitions, performances, prom, graduations, and other important rituals in their spring semester. The loss is real, and we need to give them permission to feel it, and we need to give ourselves permission to feel that as well. Neuroscience and research reminds us that our brain, when we experience loss, sadness, or trauma, that we have higher levels of cortisol, which can create that feeling of being stuck. Trying to do anything productive can be challenging for all of us. Personally, I experienced this feeling of being stuck early on in quarantine. I found myself unable to focus long enough to read a book or unmotivated to do anything. As a highly efficient individual, I would have expected that I would have done a lot of home projects, paint the bathroom that's still not painted, or do the list of things that I would have loved to do because I have all this time. But I found myself very stuck, really doing nothing. Maybe you've experienced this as well. However, I know it was going to be essential to set some personal goals in order to overcome this being stuck feeling I was experiencing. I used the strategies from our next card and our next experience to set some goals. And so I used the strategies to map out physical, social, emotional, quarantine, academic goals. I had hopes and dreams early on. I had talked with Pam about I would love to do a webinar and bring a whole bunch of educators together and support them as they walk through this. However, while I was in the stuck space, a lot wasn't happening and that needed to take place, right? So I needed an accountability partner as well. So maybe you're feeling this same experience, or we know that our students may be feeling it as well. So in addition, I shared those goals with Pam and with my accountability partner and connected with them frequently, sometimes every morning with my health coach at 7 a.m. And I used that as a way to get unstuck of sleeping in too late. And so just setting those kinds of goals. In addition, I shared these goals with my family. You, your colleagues, or students may need strategies or a goal-setting framework to help get unstuck. I know that I kept labeling myself as unmotivated. And then as I would even think about that word, I thought about how many times as I've been in schools across the country the last 5 years that I heard teachers talk about their kids being unmotivated. And I think that this is a great for us to perk up and tune into naming that and think about, ooh, what's going on in the layers below that's that student is stuck. And so what I want us to do is look at this next activity. And the first thing that I want you to do is think about, is there something you really want to do? So just think for a moment, what's that goal? It can be personal, professional, something around the house.
It can be teeny tiny.
Like I said, I had to have a coach to get out of bed early. And then the next thing I want you to do is write down your reality. Where are you now? Because my reality was I was sleeping until 11 o'clock and it was wasting a lot of my day. And I felt stuck and like pulling the covers over my head and not really getting up and doing some things that I knew would be a little more productive. So where's your reality? And step 3, options. So what could you do differently? What changes do you want to make? Who could you have for an accountability partner? having a framework or having goal setting sessions with our students will be vital, because we may be sensing that they're unmotivated, but we also know what the neuroscience reminds us of, and what emotional scientists are reminding us, that people get stuck. And so trying to have a process or a framework to help them get unstuck with those goals will be essential. So we're going to go to our breakout room. And I just want you to share what your goal is, what your current reality is. And Alicia, if you put our questions up. And just share your plan with your group. Is there a way to build in that accountability partner?
Everybody have a chance to take a shot at that? Otherwise, I'm going to send us to our rooms.
And this one's going to be a quicker group. So if you'll just wrap around.
Sounds good. Katrina and Amy, this is Alicia, and just a heads up, you actually have to manually join the rooms. There we go. Totally missed my cue for putting her slide up. You're muted. Hang on, let me unmute you.
Someone asked if you could put it up because they didn't write fast enough. I think they got a peek of it.
Yeah, I missed the cue that she was ready for.
That's okay. Maybe when they come back from the room, it can just be the screen share.
Yeah.
We're pretty good on time, huh?
Right on time.
So you're gonna pop in after I say we see you, we hear you, we value you.
All right. I took a screenshot of what it is I'm supposed to say. That was cool that she nailed that out of Al-Anon, or made that correlation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do a 2-minute warning on these guys.
Okay.
And they're coming back. I'm going to share the screen so they can see that one.
Okay, great.
Oops.
And then we can just highlight the numbers, right? Oh, that's fine.
That was too soon. Tina was in the middle of a conversation.
It's fine, I have to bring it back too soon. I'm sorry.
We got cut off too.
Sorry. But
All right.
the screen up just in case somebody wanted to take a quick screenshot. I think we had a question on that.
Does anyone want to share how that process might have helped?
I'll share. I think it helps in the same way that the previous exercise did, in that writing it down is magical. That, and just that writing it, saying it, and knowing that you need to follow up with another human being crystallizes it and encapsulates it. So you feel like you have something you have control over again.
Yeah, great point.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
But I think that just writing it down, knowing they can be small little things, and then I heard earlier teachers modeling it for their students, but even colleagues modeling it for one another, and being able to just be vulnerable in this time and be okay with it, and remind folks of why they might be feeling foggy, of why they might be struggling to do the things that they want to get to. So, and the baby steps of setting small goals just to get them going and in a direction. And I feel like I did start a bathroom. I'm completely in reno mode, and I am like, as soon as I'm done working, to zone out and get away from it all. I just want to like stay. To the point where I could stay in there till 11 o'clock at night just working, because I just zone out and I have the music on and I just go. And I have to still set boundaries with that, because then, you know what I mean? Like I'm not as young as I used to be. I can't go that long and I get exhausted. And so, yeah, I just think it's really about balance right now and trying to really have some healthy balance in our lives.
Thank you for sharing, Chris. I know that I really connected with Brene Brown and Mark. Pam, help me out.
Brackett.
Mark Brackett had a podcast, and the moment I listened to the first 10 minutes and he named the cortisol and that created this stuck feeling, I was like, that's what it is. And I've read it and I have it in some of my work that I've done previously, but just hearing somebody else say it made me like, oh yeah, that's what's going on, right? So I love that you named sharing that and reminding each other. And that was really our whole purpose today, is bringing you together and reminding you of, we see you, we hear you, remember, this is hard.
And I think, our goal is to create a space of connection for you where you could pause and consider what you need, but also what your students might need right now. And I know that it's different maybe than how we thought about SEL before. But I believe in my bones that our students are needing exactly what we're needing. They're needing permission to talk about how they're feeling. They're needing a place where it's okay to grieve and be angry and learn to find some balance in this craziness. And I think that was sort of the brainchild of the solutions that we have created, because we know that when you feel equipped and brave enough to lead your students in a wholehearted way, then students will grow healthy and secure in their social and emotional self and their lived experiences. Because their lived experiences right now are hard. And school for them is no longer it's not a place of safety. And so I think we have this amazing opportunity to reframe school as an experience that is safe emotionally, a place where they can remove their armor, where they can be vulnerable, where they can embrace their classroom community and engage in healthy relationships, which is really why we have put our heart and soul into creating solutions with a focus on strengthening inner resilience and relational confidence in students, as well as on educators' own self-care and compassion. We were guided by the CASEL standards and made the decision to honor your crazy demanding schedules by making all of our solutions 100% not an add-on. They were created for educators by educators, because we see you, we hear you, and we value everything you do every day with really our next generation of leaders. So thank you.
Awesome.
Alicia, I'm gonna let you take over.
Yeah, so my name's Alicia, and I want to thank everyone for taking the time to submit all of the questions that you did ahead of time. So we did a fairly thorough job, right, of coming together to compile those questions and do all that fun stuff. And what I'm going to do right now is throw up a quick slide where we can talk about, the next steps and what's possible for us, so, staying connected and so on together. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of this and whatnot, it shows ways to connect with us, obviously on Facebook, Twitter. If you want to send us a quick email, our email address is there. And we will be reaching out to you probably early next week with some other sort of questions for you, but you will also have the opportunity then to let us know which of the care cards or which of the student activity cards that you would actually like to receive. And we are going to go ahead and send the card of your choice out. So one of those questions will be what your grade band is and which of the care cards you would like to receive. So we definitely want to keep an eye out for that. But if you don't mind, we would just like to ask you rather to take a moment to just pause for a moment and think about, if these activities you found had an impact on you, to sort of put yourself in this shoes, I guess, of your students, really, and see which of these activities you feel would really have a good impact on your students, and which I think you feel called, for lack of a better way of putting it, which of these activities you feel called to use with your students, hopefully moving forward, or even if it's fellow staff members. So you want to just take a moment or two to just write down which of the activities you felt had the most impact on you, and then we'll chat on next action steps and get some questions answered. We have some questions ready, and then if you have other questions that came up for you during this discussion that you want to drop in the chat, please feel free to do that as well. I should mention too, this third prompt on this slide for helping out, there's a bit.ly link on this actually, because we're doing a similar sort of panel on Thursday that we're doing for leaders in education. So if you have someone that you know that you feel would benefit from joining this discussion or a similar discussion on Thursday, that bit.ly link for bettertogether3_leadership, if you want to drop that to leaders that you feel would benefit, that will take them straight over to the registration for Thursday's event. Okay. Awesome. So did everybody have a chance to take a shot of the screen, and then I'll pull it down. Okay.
So one of the questions that came up several times actually as you registered was really wanting to know how to create your own activities in service of what your students are going through. And so I thought that I could share sort of the process that we went through as we created the 80 different activities for each grade band. You may or may not be familiar with the CASEL standards, but across the middle of this slide, social awareness, self-management, relationship skills, self-awareness, and responsible decision-making, along with the descriptors of those 5 categories, are really the tenets of CASEL, which is a very reputable organization that guides the social and emotional learning work. Underneath those 5 tenets are the categories of areas that we've created activities around. So for example, social awareness, we have 8 categories that include kindness and gratitude, and 8 around empathy, and so on through the document. And I will tell you that as we came up with activities that we felt were valuable for teachers to facilitate, we really had to get curious with ourselves. I mentioned I have 5 grown children, and 3.5 of them struggled with emotional and mental challenges through their schooling. And I need a little shout out to Gina, who's on right now. She was my son's 2nd grade teacher. And she was phenomenal in helping him as he navigated some really big emotions as as we went through a divorce. Anyway, the reason I say that is we have just started paying attention to what people around us are needing and what we're needing and what our kids are needing. And I interviewed my kids, and I wanted to know about their school experience and the teachers that saw them and heard them and valued them, and what if they could create a new space for schooling, what would that look like? And so really the activities are like the brain work of the people around us that matter to us of all ages. Allie shared that she did this with Finn, her first grader, and her neighbor. And so we've just done a lot of, I think what I'd like to say is we put a lot of heart and soul into this, but we've done it with people around us. So it's pretty great. And so to create your own activities, I think you need to just be willing to be curious and to name what you're going through and be brave enough to have that conversation or to provide a space for your children, your students, your neighbors to name it and feel it and be with you in those experiences. So it takes a lot of courage, but if we need it, so do all of our students. And so we feel really great about the process we went through and the span of the areas that we've covered.
And another question that came up was, what makes us different than a second step that you may already have in your schools or your districts? And I have to tell you, like, having been an elementary school principal and a teacher, one thing that just stands out is the responsiveness. You know, I alluded to earlier, the grief in the 6-foot bubble really was developed because of the story I shared with Pam and Finnegan and his experience with his emotions around what it felt like to have to live 6 feet apart from one another. And so I think as we think about it, it's real relevant, authentic experiences that our own kids are having, that we're having, that we can really help make those and bridge those connections. In addition to that, it's really bold and different with the focus on teacher self-care and really looking at you as teachers first. And how are you taking care of yourselves and really help supporting you through that so that you can ultimately provide experiences, create a space for students to be vulnerable and have some of these common experiences as well. In addition, we have lots of opportunities for push and coaching, professional development virtually, or hopefully back in physical spaces as well. But I just keep thinking about, and Pam's talked a lot about this, this is really what kids need. This is really what we need, and we've heard that from you today, as well as really differentiating it K-12 and meeting kids where they're at. I mean, you could pick up a card, and I know I saw in the chat, a lot of people are interested in the grief in the 6-foot bubble, and engage in a conversation with a 6-year-old, a high school senior, a 72-year-old parent, and really be able to pull those emotions and those experiences out and find the gratitude in this whole quarantine experience.
I've got another question, but before I answer it, that came in from earlier, we only have 5 minutes left, so I just want to know, is there anyone that has a question before I hop into mine?
Also, we're willing to stay on longer if people have individual questions that they want to talk about too. So feel free to stay on longer.
All right, so one of the questions that came up was, what would a full experience look like in my building? And so our dream is always in the heart and soul of supporting the whole school culture, right? But we know that that starts with the leadership team and teachers. And so we've referred to these teacher self-care cards. And so it's a box, and it was really designed to be like a gift to teachers, and that there's an activity that you can do daily or weekly, depending how fast you want to work through them. You could work through them in professional learning communities. The other piece of this is that there would be coaching. We are certified to have the Brene Brown Daring Classroom certification in your school. And so we would love to make sure that the teachers are getting the right support, that you're not just receiving another thing to do, but that you are experiencing the support as well. So we really have a passion for starting with the school leaders and the teachers. And then in addition to the teacher, I call it the gift, but the self-care cards is a student set or a classroom set to help build, whether it's virtual or in person. We all hope for in person, but we also have built this so that it could possibly be virtually done. You can see how today we were able to do this virtually. And so all of the 80 activities, and we've differentiated those into K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and a high school set. Again, we really are advocates of coming along and partnering with you, not just kind of releasing materials, but we really believe in everyone having that social emotional learning experience together collectively.
Awesome. And then we have a question from Amy, and her question is, how do we support the parents of the students?
Allison, do you want to take that?
Sure. I think a lot of these activities, you know, just as we did them here, and you heard Allie sharing, you know, she did it as a parent with her own children, can definitely be shared with parents. Children always, you know, the way that they interact and experience anything, reading, writing, math, right, like is different when they're in school than when they're at home. So even if it's an activity that was already done at school, I find a lot of power as a school leader in sharing, like our teachers did XYZ this week. Here's a way that you can try it at home. And a grief in a 6-foot bubble is an exact idea of a way to do that. So I think just communicating with parents about how to get their students to address all the things that we talked about, the connection with people, the psychological and emotional safety, right? All of those different topics would be really important. And I'll just throw in a little plug that I think someone in my group, I think Chris, maybe it was you, mentioned earlier, like as someone who's been an educational innovator for my entire career, I can tell you I've never felt so much hope in what the future of education will be and will bring for all children. There's a lot of challenge that we are surrounded by on a daily basis in our home life, in our work life, in our personal lives. But, you know, we always knew that school was not meeting the needs of all of our children for a very long time. And there was not a lot of openness in traditional systems to doing things differently, right? Because this is how we and now I think everyone from across the spectrum realizes, man, we got to do it differently now, you know, and there's a lot more openness to thinking about things in alternative ways. And so I think the self-care cards and the professional development and the student activity boxes for K through 12 are really designed with that in mind. The idea that school can and will and should be different in and after, you know, this experience. And this is an opportunity to really explore a way to model and demonstrate to staff and families, as someone mentioned, right, different ways that it can look.
Awesome, thank you. Amy, did that answer your question? I just unmuted you. Try again.
She has to unmute herself also.
There you go. Okay, I guess more my question was, I seem to have a lot of parents that are so stressed out that they can't even help their kids with school at home right now. And I was wondering how to be more supportive of the parents themselves and the parents' emotional status right now, more so than even their kids. Their kids seem to be rolling with it fairly well at 2nd grade, but it's the parents that I'm finding I'm having conversations with, and the parents seem to be stuck, and the parents seem to be so overwhelmed that they just can't even help their kids with school.
Can I just share my experiences with this, Amy, with you? Just some, I feel like it's almost like a pulse, and some families can do a whole bunch of stuff right now, and some families cannot. And our role as educators it is to be an anchor for them right now through this. And so there's times we have to ease up. I'm not sure where you are or how, if you're going to be grading or that kind of stuff, but easing up on some of the academic stuff and really looking at what are we learning right now? What are our kids learning right now? They're learning patience, they're learning perseverance, they're learning how to be with their families and all those things that we put in that inner circle. And I know it's taken phone calls from me where the parent is so stressed out, and for me to say, no, that is not our role right now. We are here to support you. What do you need? And trying to provide them and direct them to whatever resources, and taking that pressure when they're already under so much pressure off of them. So that's just one way that I feel like we can ease that, and just do baby steps on coaching them how to do this at home with their kids. I don't know if others might have ideas as well.
Amy, I envision using those teacher self-care cards with parents. All right, let's do this with a group of parents, right? And helping parents even use the teacher self-care cards. We think about our community. Think about if you would have done that life in a 6-foot bubble. I did it with my 72-year-old mom today. She was kind of stressing out about a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, we're going to do something together. And it was amazing to watch her stress level just kind of fall off after doing that. So I think these self-care cards would be a support, not only for teachers, but also for communities and families. I know that I was sharing it with my husband, who's in the medical world, and he was like, I need to talk to Pam because we need those as nurses right now. And so I had shot Pam a text earlier today, and I was like, I think we need to think about these widely. While we have created them in a space of wanting, our heart's desire is to support teachers with them. They're not necessarily specific as you experience today to teachers. You could expand them with parents, families, communities, really any way that you wanted.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions that anyone wants to jump in on? Feel free to just unmute yourself.
So I'm just curious, is there anything that is out there for people to come together, and even if they don't know each other, and have a facilitator take them through these activities? I mean, I know Eventbrite, there's a lot of things, everybody's doing a webinar these days, but just focusing on that aspect of social emotional care, because I mean, everybody talks about it. This is kind of given, for me, has solidified it in my mind as to what social emotional learning and self-care is. And it's connecting with other people, especially in this time. So I'm just wondering if anybody knows, if anybody's doing anything like this, just on a community basis to support each other and being organized by maybe a school district or.
So Jim, thanks for that question. Remember at the beginning, I told you that Brene kept saying, serve the work, serve the work. And I was like, I don't know what the heck that means. One of the things that came out of that nudge is I'm actually facilitating Zoom calls weekly in groups of 20 educators, 4 sessions, doing this exact thing, just creating a space for an hour that's theirs to pause, to do something like we did together. And the idea is that after the fourth time, then someone in that community will start facilitating, and then we can like spread the work, right? So we follow a format of just 10 minutes of grounding, a little bit of information around, you know, like what cortisol is doing for getting us stuck, a reflection, breakout room where people get to connect and talk, and then really just a mindful practice at the end. So it's a format that I don't need to be the one facilitating, but I think that all of us can do this work. Like these things that you did today, what if you offered it to friends? The amazing thing of this Zoom group is I made the offer, and it is literally 20 strangers coming together and sharing with each other as if they have been lifelong friends, and this connection that's happening is giving them the hope and the courage to take this not only to their students, but to sort of expand the work with strangers, which for me is one of the silver linings in this. We're connecting with people in ways that we haven't. So I think this work just takes courage. It takes a willingness to be brave and say, I see you, I know this is hard, let's be here together in this. So I challenge anyone to start a Zoom group. I've got a Sunday night one and I've got a Wednesday afternoon one. And we just keep growing. And there's a couple other Dare to Lead facilitators that are offering the same service, but there's nothing special about us. It doesn't have to be us. It could be any one of you doing this. One time we just talked about breathing and we got over everybody rolling their eyeballs like, oh, you're gonna make us breathe. And at the end, they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they're just so grateful to have time to pause. And so we can do that. We can bring the pause to them.
Pam, I just wanted to share an example. I called on a reference check today to another administrator, and we did interviews via Zoom, and I called and I did the reference check, and then the principal said, so how are you guys doing over there? And we started talking, and I was on the phone with her for an hour. It's like we're all in this trying to get a handle on the national conversation from our living rooms, or from, you know what I mean, our own little spaces that we're having to be at, and filter out all of the nonsense that is being fed. And so it's just and keeping our families and everybody safe. So I just want to say, I thought of it, and I thought of what you're doing, and I thought people are just desperate to learn from one another and figure out what this next thing is going to look like.
Yeah, Chris, and I also think we want to learn from each other, but we also want to help each other get better, right? I mean, the work that you're doing in classrooms requires you to be good. It requires you to feel healthy emotionally and physically. Self-care feels like a buzzword, but man, when we're better, our students are better, our families are better, our spouses, our friends are all better when we prioritize ourselves, because they're watching us, friends. They're watching every move we make during this hard time. And the interesting thing is that some of us, me included, sometimes get in this busy mode and the kids are watching. And we're not talking about the elephant in the room. We're kind of trying to make them feel like everything's fine, and it's not fine. And they know. They're smart. So we're the ones that need to be braver and start these conversations and give them a space to process this. But we have to do it ourselves first, because they smell BS, right? We have to do it first so we're better for them.
I don't want to keep talking, Pam. Can I share one more thing with you? about a student that did 6 pages of I hate school to the teacher. And the teacher was telling me this today, and the teacher's like, I don't understand. They just can't. This is not too hard. And I said, maybe it doesn't have to do at all with being hard. It's so sad. It's this kid saying, I'm hurting, I'm hurting, I'm hurting. I can't do what you're asking me to do because this hurts too bad. So.
Yeah.
I have my own son at home who it's a battle. His teacher does a live read aloud every day on not on Zoom, on Google Meets, but same thing. And he cries, and we struggle every day for him to attend that. And finally the other night, I'm like, what is the deal? I mean, I'm like bribing, that's not me, just to get him to jump on there. Cause as a teacher, I know she has to prove participation. And I'm like, even just turn off your video camera, mute it. I don't care. It needs to be on. You need to be listening to it. You need to show up for Miss Erin. And just big tears. It's just too sad. Like even just seeing everyone, it's just too sad. And I think it just makes him, it's the reality that they're there, but he can't be with them. And I have a lot of team meetings where we're talking about, yeah, why are kids not showing up, or why are kids not, but it's just, it's so heavy, and it's just hard. The work, it's not that work is too hard. They don't know how to, I don't even know my words right now, but I'm really struggling with my own son, helping him connect virtually with his friends, because it's just too hard to admit that that's the reality right now. It's easier to just ignore it.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Gina. Okay, well, the goal was for you to feel filled up, and now we're really having some really needed conversation. So thank you for sharing like where you're really at and what you're going through. We also have gone way past 5 o'clock, and I want to honor that. But if you want to stay on, feel free. I don't think we have any other. Do we have any trend questions left?
I muted myself. No, we covered those.
Okay. Okay, good.
The one thing I just want to mention is we are creating a Facebook platform, Better Together Cubed. And we plan to be putting some of Brene Brown's podcasts in there, some articles from Education Leadership, inviting it as a space for you all to connect with each other. And so please look for us on Facebook, Better Together Cubed, and we will be continuing to support you in this conversation.
For sure. And we'll put that information on that email that will include the information for the care card that you can request. We'll put all the links in there for that too, to make it easy for you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Great meeting you. Have a good night.
We do have one quick question that I'm not sure the answer as to whether or not there are CEUs available for this webcast. Do we know if there are?
I would say there are not, but that's a good thing to pursue.
Okay, sweet.
That's a really good idea. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Thank you. Yep. Oh yeah, so Gina, I totally hear you. I didn't hear you say that you didn't think people were trying hard enough at all. I think you communicated that well. So
I'm sorry, I randomly just started talking, and I'm like, it's really not my place. But yeah, I hear in my own team, and I shared in my little small group, that I'm the only one with school-age children. So there's 6 of us in the upper elementary, and they're all young, technologically savvy, like light years ahead of me and all of this. But sometimes they're just baffled of why certain kids aren't doing the work and stuff. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm seeing it from a very different perspective at home. I have academically, my kids don't have any challenges, but they are challenged right now, like big time, to connect and want to do the work and want to show up at their meetings. And yeah, I don't know how to express it to them. I just keep saying, it's not you, it's the situation. It is not, you're not doing anything wrong. We're doing everything we can to reach them. But I mean, everybody's processing this on their own timeline, and what's a hard day for me might be a totally cool day for someone else. So our kids are the same.
Gina, I just want to say that I can totally empathize with you as you talk about your own kids. And when I shared earlier about Finnegan, like, I've never seen that side of him. Being so sad and so anxious about going on a bike ride. And that's just a small story in all of this, but I see it so heavy on his heart, and trying to, as a parent, as an educator, as a person, to help him navigate that is very challenging. So I just want to say I can relate to you. And I'm sorry, everyone, I need to hop off. I have little faces poking their heads off at me. So thank you, everyone, for being here. It was such a pleasure working together.
Thanks, Allie.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it's a smaller crowd, so Gina, I'm gonna call you out again. Gina was Davis's second grade teacher.
Oh, that's you. Oh my God.
20.
And Madison's.
Oh, and Madison's. Yeah, and it was like a crazy time in their lives, and she was like the most amazing teacher that they could have. So thank you.
That's so awesome.
No, it was meant to be. They were amazing to me, and so were you. I've always been learning from you, so I'm grateful for you.
So awesome.
Well, they're 22 and 25 now, so.
Crazy.
Thanks for turning on your video, Caroline. It's good to see your face.
Yeah, I guess I had a quick question, if that's okay, if I can shift the conversation a little bit. So I'm the only social worker in an independent charter. So very much in most of our students come to us, you know, below grade level, and it's always, we're playing catch up when we're in school. So I'm very much anticipating upon our return, kind of a doubling down on this catching up mentality, which I don't see saving a lot of space for the slowing down that trauma requires in order to address it, and, you know, to allow our students to grow holistically and be able to become their best whole and academic selves. And my question upon registering was just like, and maybe it's the conversations that I'll need to have with administration, I'm not really sure, but I guess, do you have any tips on how to encourage other adults in the building to slow down when I feel like we're just going to hit the ground running faster than ever?
Carolyn, two things. The first one, I just want, and we should have said this to everyone earlier, we have a second town hall that we're putting on for leadership teams. So first, I would encourage you to send that maybe to some of those people, whether it's instructional coaches or principals or other leaders in the building. And maybe a shout out like, hey, this was really something we need to think about, and it was a great platform. So first, I would encourage you to invite them to Thursday, this coming Thursday, and we can connect with you and send you information. The second thing is that we do plan to help put some more of the research around why this work is important. I always think about we go slow to go fast, right? And we may need to say that a lot to staff as we prepare for moving forward, whatever platform that looks like in the fall, right? I love your forward thinking about like, ooh, I could see that those kids maybe are falling behind. And so what is that going to look like? Because we do know that sometimes that becomes even crazier about the data, right? But naming kind of the elephant in the room. Hey, there's been some trauma here for all of us. So let's maybe press in. And one of Brene Brown's words that she uses, I love, is rumble. Like, we need to rumble over this. What's our game plan? And so we're here to support you through that. But the first thing I would say is we're here to partner with you in connecting with those people that need to hear this.
Okay, absolutely. I got that link. Thank you. I will absolutely pass that on.
Okay, sweet.
Allison, do you have anything to add to that? I know you have quite a background in charter schools. I know it's not necessarily specific to charter schools, but you know the inner workings of smaller.
Yes. Well, you're getting new leadership next year too, right?
Yes, we are, like a lot of new leadership.
So there's going to be a lot of transition. She's in Chicago also. I actually met your people. We were both reauthorized on the same day, but you got your
Yes.
first reauthorization and we got our third. So we're like 15
Okay.
years ahead of you.
Okay.
Exactly. So I would say that I think the good news is I think in Chicago there's a lot of conversation around pausing on assessments, waiting for, you know, all of those high stakes measures that, you know, go into your accountability metric. So that's a positive, you know, that we can sort of point to and remind people that yes, our children need to get to this, but actually this is not going to impact our rating. Right? Like the 5 E's will. So let's get, you know, to the 5 E's. I'm kind of talking Chicago talk, but to really I think just remind them that we have to like reimagine and redesign. And that's what charter schools were meant to do anyway. So you guys are in the perfect position to do it. You know, I think, you know, those are all really important things. And I mean, you guys are lucky. You're in a really positive position. Chicago's schools got their budgets last week. Like they did not get a budget cut. They actually got a budget increase in line with the union increase. So I think it's about looking at that revenue and really spending it to make sure that you're addressing those high needs of the students and the staff, right? I think the self-care part we didn't talk a lot about here, although Pam opened with it. And you mentioned self-care in the small group as well. And it's not like the hokey kind of self-care, right? And so I think those two things paired together will be really important. And yeah, you can send the, I'm sure whoever your leadership is has heard of me. So you should send them to come, you know, on Thursday and learn a little bit more. I think it's always helpful to have a tool, frankly, for people who are not, you know, like built to do this. And so I think this in particular is something that is very accessible in terms of price, very accessible in terms of, and, you know, you can try you being on this, someone else being on the Thursday call, 1 or 2 activities with your staff. People can try it with kids and then sort of think about if it's a good investment. And you're small enough that really, you know, to slow down to go fast, exactly what you said, I think is a good message.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I think it's just so many unknowns. It's unprecedented territory, and I'm trying to stay present and grounded and also think as far ahead as I can, you know, to prepare for, you know, meeting those needs. So I think you're right in terms of just gathering tools and making sure that everyone has access to, you know, that's a big part of my job, trying to figure out social emotional tools that can be done remotely, all that good stuff, from admin to parents to students to teachers. But I will.
Yeah, and for you, like just keeping in contact with those kids is really important because your funding is based on the kids that actually show up in your building. And so you want to make sure that all those kids are actually coming, you know, just in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Gina. It was great to meet you, Gina.
It was very great to meet you.
But keep in touch, and, you know, if we can ever see each other in person,
yeah, absolutely.
To Great Lakes and see you.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys spending the extra time. I didn't mean to, you know, derail the conversation or anything. I guess I'm just looking for all the ammo I can get so we can, you know, try to ease the impact on the kids. So I really appreciate it.
Well, keep in touch. Good to meet you.
Absolutely. It was nice to meet you all. Thanks again.
Take care.
Bye.